Close your eyes and think about the best presentation you've ever attended. Try to recall as much detail as possible. Don't rush, we have time. Now, what kind of details did you recall? What about the message? Do you recall what the big takeaway was? Do you remember exactly what the presenter wanted you to do after the session ended? Did you do it? If your answer to these questions is yes, then that was in fact the best presentation you've ever attended. And it's likely because the presenter, when developing his or her content, committed to one driving principle. This brief explainer video will touch on 4 important aspects of developing your AIA continuing education presentation content to ensure a meaningful and lasting impact on your audience, our members, which is who it's really about. Okay, so it is kind of about you. You're the authority on the topic. You have a wealth of worthwhile and meaningful information and knowledge to impart, and you're passionate about it. You want to get it out there and offer your wisdom to anyone who will listen. But when you're offering continuing education content to AIA members, you're not talking to just anyone. You're talking to a very focused group who has offered you their time and attention for a reason. They are seeking your ideas for, or solutions to, the professional challenges they face daily. And so it's not just about what you have to say. It's about how what you have to say meets the audience's needs, fulfills their expectations, and helps them grow and develop professionally. The overlap between what you want to achieve and what your audience needs should be the starting point for your presentation content development. Once you've identified where your message and the audience's needs overlap, you can identify the appropriate topics for discussion. To organize this content, it's important to stay focused on the reaction you want to elicit. What do you want your audience to know or do at the end of the presentation? This is your purpose. State it. Then organize your presentation to fulfill it. Start with a map so that you make it easy for them to get there with you. If they're worried about where your presentation is going, then they might miss where it is at any given point. To map your presentation, you need to think about possible rhetorical strategies. These strategies should be based on your overall objective, which is what you want them to know or do at the end of the presentation. For example, you may simply be providing information for the audience to think about in the hopes that they seek out a deeper dive on their own or come to you for more information. In this case, you might consider a topical organizational pattern. If you want them to adopt a process or strategy that you have developed or support, consider a presentation that's guided by the steps in that process or strategy. Maybe you want to persuade them that a particular idea is right, or force them to make a choice. A comparison and contrast strategy could be just the ticket. An extended metaphor might work well here too. No matter the objective, many presenters choose to structure their presentation as a story. Storytelling in general is one of the most effective presentation strategies because, done well, it inherently lends itself to being remembered and retold. You can also easily incorporate many other rhetorical strategies into a story framework because stories are enhanced by strong, intentional, and specific language and rhetorical patterns. You may be familiar with Aristotle's 3-part story structure. A story must have a beginning, a middle, and an end, a problem, a conflict, and a resolution. But within those parameters, quite a bit can happen, and that's what you control. For presentations that are seeking to inspire an audience to act, communications expert, CEO, and award-winning author Nancy Duarte recommends using a very specific storytelling technique. Duarte's strategy calls for the presenter to provide the audience with a picture of what is and what could be, in order to imagine a resolution, what she calls a new bliss, or what can become the new normal. This possibility, this new bliss, is what inspires the audience to act. This story pattern allows you to appeal to the audience's reason and emotion. It keeps the narrative moving and interesting, while also allowing you to remain organized and on point so you can deliver what you promised and keep your audience from getting lost. And you have a better chance of meeting their expectations if they're not lost. The heart of an effective and sticky presentation, one that will be remembered, is a structured narrative that appeals to reason and emotion. That said, audiences will better retain your information if you supplement your main narrative, your story, with additional sensory stimulation. Simple slides with expository pictures, charts or graphs, and limited text are time-tested and easily developed for incorporation into the slide deck template the AIA provides. Adhering to these standards helps the audience stay connected. You're meeting their collective visual expectations, and they don't have to simultaneously read and listen to you talk. As you know, when this happens, no one learns anything. Brief audio and video clips are great. They not only supplement your narrative, they provide the audience the opportunity for passive engagement. By briefly switching how the content is delivered, you're forcing the audience to adjust. Those moments of adjustment are actually a challenge, and challenges in the learning process will help with recall and retrieval. A well-placed soundbite or animation can ensure that your message is remembered long after the presentation has ended. Whether a graphic, a song, or a parlor trick, the main thing to remember when it comes to developing supplemental content is that it's just that, supplemental. It may help clarify an idea and enhance audience retention of your message, but generally, the medium is not the message. If you get rid of your slide deck and your presentation no longer makes sense, or it does but you can't actually give it because your plan was to read the slides, then you've got some work to do. Remember, the show must go on, even if your technology fails, or if you are unable to present your visuals or use your props as planned. While visuals and props will contribute to the audience remembering you, and hopefully your message, opportunities for active audience engagement should be worked in too. This means that your audience actively participates. Oftentimes, they create content for you during the presentation and help shape its direction. Active engagement opportunities should be meaningful and directly connect to the purpose of your presentation. Whether it's to get a baseline understanding of your audience's level of experience with your topic, to have them practice a skill or test a tool, or to engage them in an inquiry-based discussion, the audience will be more invested in the outcome of the presentation if they are actually part of it. But do be careful. The audience will leave annoyed at best and angry at worst if they feel like you were just being cute, wasting their time, or not honoring your commitment to quality education. So, be judicious in the tools and activities you incorporate. They should be intentional and varied. Use relevant and easy communication and engagement tools, and incorporate activities that will appeal to an AIA member audience. Engagement that allows a member to contribute his or her perspective, experience, ideas, or questions will help your sessions stick. While it is absolutely essential you provide opportunities for the audience to ask questions, If you're looking for a way to virtually guarantee that your message will get lost, it's to end your presentation on an open Q&A session. Any questions is the universal signal for the audience to gather their things and check their phones. You've had it happen to you as a presenter, and you've done it as a participant. So always have a plan for handling questions and build that plan into your presentation. One option, if you have the ability to do this, is to encourage the audience to send questions in advance of the presentation, and then you can work them in ahead of time. You can also allow for live tweeting or posting of questions, and then have someone help you curate and manage those during the presentation. Solicit questions or feedback on specific topics or ideas as you're beginning to talk about them, in the middle of them, or wrapping them up. Plan a few logical breaks where the audience can fire away about anything they've heard so far. And if you're feeling really adventurous, get the audience talking to each other, and then have them come back to you with feedback on what they've heard and discussed, and any questions that they've decided as a group are important. As part of your plan, before you conclude the presentation, offer to follow up with anyone who has lingering or new queries, and let them know how to actually follow up. Refer them to additional resources, and end on your final message. Here are some examples of how you might go about managing and maximizing your Q&A time during a presentation. The conclusion is your opportunity to drive it all home. Don't cede your message to an audience member who might simply be wondering where you got your shoes. And even if that final question is a good one, it's hard to ensure that you can effectively connect it back to your message in a way that leaves the audience with exactly what you want them to remember. So, to conclude, restate your purpose emphatically. The audience now knows or can do what you told them they would be able to know or do by the end of the session. This is great. Then, say thank you. And finally, leave. Now, everything we've covered sounds great in theory, but how do you know it will work? Well, it won't, unless you do it. And not just once on the day of your presentation. You need to practice. And practice doesn't mean just reading your words aloud and clicking through your slides. It means gathering an audience, friends, colleagues, significant others, anyone who can provide honest and constructive feedback on everything in your presentation, from the statement of your purpose, to how well the presentation was mapped, to how effective and organized your content was, to the worthwhile nature of your group activities, to whether they're now inspired to do your bidding. If you're incorporating technology and props, practice with those in front of people. Pretend that the internet goes out, that PowerPoint doesn't load, that all of your supplemental assets are inaccessible. Then give the presentation anyway. Ask them to tell you from their guts how it went. Then ask them to be a bit more objective. Give them a review form with a checklist and the opportunity to provide written feedback. Ask them follow-up questions. Solicit advice. Take some of it. Ignore some of it. Then tweak the presentation accordingly and try it again. Practice won't make perfect, but perfect practice will. The good news is that you're already on your way to a successful presentation. You have a topic, purpose, platform, and an audience who wants to hear what you have to say. As you continue developing, practicing, and making your final preparations, remember, it's about them. The purpose, organization and structure, level and type of engagement, even how you practice, must be informed by the needs and expectations of your AIA audience, and then it must meet them. Thank you for your time and continued support for our mission to provide high-quality, continuing education and professional development opportunities to AIA members and our allied community.